Scotland the Brave. By the roll. 1, 2. Pipes down. Band dismissed.
I would like to start by thanking Emma and Gordon Haggerty for sharing their musical talents with us and for setting an appropriate mood for our school-wide Remembrance Day Assembly. I would also like to thank all of the various participants today, along with Mrs. Grenier and Ms. Iman's classes for creating all of this display, and of course for the wonderful backdrop. Mr. Rakowski McGill was the inspiration behind much of this. Thank you very much. Now, of course, today, the most important group of people that we are here to thank and to remember are Canada's veterans. But before we get into the heart of our Remembrance Day Assembly, I would like to invite Tat Kuska to come up and read our land acknowledgement.
We acknowledge the homeland of the many diverse First Nations and Métis people whose ancestors have walked this land since time immemorial. We are grateful to work, live, and learn on the traditional territory of Treaty 8. At this time, we invite everyone to please stand while Cameron Wright sings for us our national anthem, accompanied on the piano by Miss Mitchell.
Thank you. You may be seated if you haven't grabbed a seat. Remembrance Day. It traces its origins back to what was called Armistice Day, which was the day that the fighting officially stopped at the end of World War I. The armistice took place at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. This day came after the end of 4 terrible and costly years of war. Finally, the gunfire and the mortar shells had grown silent, and it was in this moment of silence that those who remained alive reflected and remembered upon the lives of those who were lost. In time, Armistice Day became known as Remembrance Day, and we still hold true to the tradition of taking a moment of silence amid our Remembrance Day assembly as close to the 11th hour as we can. We take this time to remember our veterans. Since the end of the First World War, there have been many other occasions in which Canadians have risen to the call. Both in World War II and in the Korean War, Canadians fought for freedom. In the decades that followed, Canadian veterans also took the lead in peacekeeping missions around the world. More recently, Canadian soldiers have struggled with the cause of the embattled nation of Afghanistan. Ultimately, it is our hope as Canadians to be part of a world that strives for peace, practices democracy, and allows all people to enjoy fundamental rights and freedoms. It is on this day and in this moment that we remember all the brave Canadians who fought to preserve our shared values and way of life. It is on this day that we remember those who died and those who returned to us. It is on this day that we remember those who served and those who continue to serve Canada and the world in times of war, conflict, and in times of peace. Now I'd like to invite Aaron Pellet to read for us perhaps the most famous poem to come out of World War I, In Flanders Fields by Dr. John McCrae.
Sous les rouges coquelicots dessinent sa flamme, qui parmi les rangées de croix bougent dans le vent, nous sommes enterrés. Et dans le bleu des cieux, les alouettes encore lancent leurs cris courageux, que plus personne n'entend sous le bruit des canons. Nous sommes morts. Il y a à peine quelques jours, nous connaissons les joies de la vie, de l'amour, la fraîcheur de l'aurore et l'heure du printemps. Maintenant, nos corps sans vie reposent en sol flamand. Nos mains inanimées vous tendent le flambeau. C'est à vous, à présent, de tenir bien haut, de contre l'ennemi reprendre la querelle. Si vous ne partagez des morts, la foi rebelle. Nos corps ne pourront pas dormir paisiblement sous les rouges coquelicots dessinés sur flamand.
At this point in our assembly, I would like to ask everyone to please stand once again. At this point, we have a special guest with us, Mr. Luna, who is going to be playing on his trumpet both the last post and the reveille. And this is a traditional element that is also included within many Remembrance Day assemblies and events. When he plays the last post, we will all listen and reflect. It will be followed by a minute of silence. Let's remain standing. Then it will be followed by the reveille. And when he's finished playing, you may have a seat. Thank you. You may be seated. The final element of our Remembrance Day Assembly here today is the tradition of the laying of the wreaths. And I have asked my colleagues in the office to help me with this process. Now, I did look on the Veterans Affairs Canada website just to get some ideas about the scope of the participation of our veterans, and I was quite amazed to learn that 2.3 million Canadians at some point have served in Canada's armed forces. This is many, many people to remember, and over the years, 118,000 Canadians have lost their lives in combat in service of our nation. So as we lay these wreaths, they are in memory of those who have served and of those who gave their lives. So this first wreath by Mr. Funk is in memory of those who served in World Wars I and World War II. Our second wreath, laid by Mr. Rawlick, is in memory of those who served in the Korean War and Canada's many peacekeeping missions. And our third wreath, laid by Mr. Dexterous, is for those who served in Afghanistan and those Canadians who are currently deployed both in Canada and around the world. Thank you for taking the time to remember. As the Haggertys play us out here, it is my hope that tomorrow you will all have the opportunity on the day off from school to have an opportunity to remember in your own way. Thank you for your attention and your respect that you've shown in our assembly here today.
Green Hills, by the roll, 1, 2.